I recently came across an ad on Facebook Marketplace where someone was selling a Magic the Gathering collection, and it was 143 cards. And so I reached out. The price that they had quoted, seemed pretty reasonable. So anyway, as I go through here, I'm going to just kind of talk you through the deal and how it came together. But there are 141 cards to cover, so I'm going to start with the cards while I explain. So this collection is a mix of vintage and modern. Start with maybe my favorite card, or one of my top three favorite cards, the Shivan Dragon. So anyway, the ad came up on Marketplace, and like I said, it seemed interesting. Looked at the pictures that you had a really nice mix of like vintage and modern cards. So that's always good. And the price that he was originally asking seemed reasonable. Whenever you buy that many cards, it's always a little bit of a tougher deal because it's harder to move. It's harder to move that number of cards. But it had some bigger stuff, like some of the bigger stuff you'll see at the end of the video. But kind of talked to him, I guess, last week, and they explained to me they'd been collecting for a long time. Most of the stuff was not played, is what he explained to me, and that it was in pretty good shape. So he had a list that he had kind of compiled on TCG Player that he sent to me, and I went through it, and everything looked reasonable. I mean, now obviously there's some risk there because you're just relying on the seller's opinion on conditions, so that's always a little bit tricky. Nightmare is a cool card too, but eventually, essentially he said, hey, this is my price. I'm not really willing to move off of it too much. And I said, okay, fine. So I said, let me go through everything once he had sent like the TCG stuff. I said, let me go through it and just kind of confirm, and then we can meet up tomorrow to make the exchange, assuming everything is good. So he'd sent me a message overnight at like 2 a.m. When I was asleep saying, hey, I'm not sure. I have someone else. I said, okay, that's fine. Then heard back from him again and said, hey, interested in making this deal. You have priority over this person. I said, okay. So we agreed to the deal. And as I was, packing up, getting ready to head over to meet him, he explained, he had called and said, hey, I'm looking at this local card store, and what they are going to offer according to what's on their website, and they're going to pay more. Are you willing to go up by, a significant amount of money? And I said, no, I'm not. It's a lot of cards to move, and I think I'm paying pretty fair percentage. So I'm just going to hold tight. I said, just for, you certainly do what's best for you. I want you to get the most that you can for your cards, but I will tell you that, generally I'm surprised to hear that you're saying that shop is going to pay more, because everybody that I've talked to, they come to me because, they post on Marketplace and they make a deal with me because that shop is, offering them 50-60% of market, which I understand. They have overhead, they have to make a living, and that's completely legitimate. So at that point, he said, yeah, I think I'm going to go with this shop. I said, okay, that's fine. So at that point, I kind of am assuming that the deal is dead and it's not going to happen. But he, I guess it was probably 3 or 4 hours later. So we were supposed to meet at like 1 o'clock that day. And, so this was probably around like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He starts sending some messages again and saying, hey, sorry that I flaked out, and, were you still interested? I'll knock $10 off. And I said, yeah, I'm interested. It wasn't about the $10 or anything. I just didn't want to, drive out and just have him change his mind again, or have something kind of fall apart with the deal. So I said, yeah, that's fine. And he was kind of closer to my area, so that made it a little bit easier. And so met up with him, and we were able to I was able to look at the cards. There were a couple things that were just like a few minor discrepancies, like $10 in his favor here and there. It wasn't, too concerned with it. I didn't, knock anything off the price for it. But obviously I knew on my end that, there is some risk there. But, in the end, we were able to make the deal. Ended up paying $9.25 for everything. And a lot of cards I think I've shown so far are anywhere from a few dollars up to, $30, $40. But the bigger cards we'll show at the end of the video in just a minute. But, a lot of the cards were packaged like this, so they, will have to be repackaged, penny sleeves. And I think it's not like a traditional penny sleeve that he has these in. It's like just cardboard and then like a team bag. And there's some other plastic in there, I think. But anyway, we'll get all those repackaged. So then the last two stacks here, this I think we start, the next stack I think is some of the higher end stuff. But, whenever, I'm looking at buying a collection, it's always, a bit of a tough process for me because I want to be as fair as possible to the person. But, when you're buying 142 cards, it's not really feasible to, go to the meetup location and recomp all the cards. You're just, trusting what the person has put into TCG in this case, and that it's accurate and that the conditions are close. And so, that's always like a really tough balance on a bigger deal like this where there's so many cards and it's not feasible to check every card. Obviously I checked all the big cards, but that's the harder part in buying a collection is it's, grading is just so subjective. And so, especially like on the vintage cards, that's where it gets a little bit, tricky and you kind of have to, assume some risk. I mean, I bought a collection a few months ago where, ended up paying, I think it was a 100 card collection, and I think the price that we agreed to was like 70%. But because of some of the discrepancies with like grading, it ended up being like 80%. Again, I didn't check all 100 of the cards. So that, that's always the risk. But, and like I said, the other concern is I want to be fair to the seller as well. So, tend to kind of lean a little bit more their way, I think, sometimes. But anyway, like I said, glad we were able to get it done. You can see the, a mix of some nice foils in here as well. Definitely like a really cool collection. And get into some of the bigger cards here in a minute. So the Unlimited Stasis is a cool one. Condition on this one isn't too bad. I think you could make an argument for LP, probably somewhere in that LP MP range, but that's definitely one of the bigger ones. And then the Force of Will, the foil here is another big one. And then kind of the last group of cards here, and we start getting into the two real big ones here in a minute. Lotus Petal is a big one, foil. It's a nice card. And then the Chrome box. So this is one of the two huge ones here. Condition on this one isn't too bad. I think both of the two big cards, the Chrome box, I believe I had this one at LP. It's pretty decent card condition, I should say. A couple of these, and then the Mox Opal. Opal, I believe, was closer to MP. But yeah, so you can see the wear at the top on that one. So yeah, that one was MP. But Yeah, so that was the whole collection. Like I said, paid $925 for everything, and I haven't really gone through every single card, and that'll be kind of processed for the next several days. Is just going through it and seeing where it came out. But curious to hear any thoughts you might have, and thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video.